Good evening, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV coming to you live to give you some updates on this story that originally came out on Tuesday, but some new reporting, some very interesting reporting is coming out tonight about this story. And we didn't get to stream on it yesterday because I was still setting stuff up here in Spain, where I am visiting Spain. So coming to you live at 2:08 a.m. in Spain to bring you this live news coverage. And why was the CIA director, why did he make a secretive trip to Moscow on Tuesday? Apparently he flew on a U.S. military plane to Moscow in Russia. So why did he do this? And the Wall Street Journal tonight came out with a report where they say that the CIA director went to Moscow to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. Let me say that again. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight that the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, went to Russia, went to Moscow on Tuesday to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. You know, there have been a number of reports. We've talked about some of these reports on the air. There have been a number of reports in recent months claiming that Russia was that there was intelligence, that Russia was planning some kind of provocation, possibly against a NATO country, possibly Poland or the Baltics. So there has been that story floating around. Now I cannot confirm this, but we will see what happens. But I wanted to talk about it. We had not talked about this story. And how did the meeting go? Oh, I mean, we don't really know how the meeting went. It's not like we have video of the meeting or audio of the meeting. The Kremlin said something about it. President Trump said something about it today. Born in Time, our viewer says, you don't use the telephone when it's serious. I mean, look, at a certain point, he did actually physically go there. He physically went there. So that's something. So I'm going to be, another thing we're going to be doing is reading your comments during the broadcast. And I apologize if a lot of times I don't wear glasses on the streams. I prefer not to. But the time zone is so screwed up here, and my schedule is still so messed up. It's 2:11 in the morning here, 2:11 a.m. So it just, my eyes felt better with the glasses on right now, and I felt like a better choice for me at the time. So I know with the setup, you might be seeing some light reflection off my glasses. Hopefully it's okay. If it's really terrible, you can write to me on X and say, no, this is really terrible. But it just, again, it's a kind of, the scheduling is a little strange so far with Spain. So I have to, anyways. So I apologize if there's reflections in the glasses, but it is what it is. Okay, so let's talk about this. And I want to thank our moderators who are here. We have Roberts May Queen and over there, and Ruth over there. Oh, there's another story I wanted to mention, which we'll talk about. Bloomberg had a report today where Bloomberg had a report, we're going to talk about this, that says that Putin is Russia's preparing to escalate attacks on Ukraine. And in that report, they claimed that some in Russia believe that as a last resort, Putin could use a tactical nuclear weapon, which I know sounds crazy, but they devoted several paragraphs to this in this Bloomberg story today. So there's a lot of noise coming out about Russia. And I mean, I will say this. one thing, I may have said this on a stream before, but I mean, one thing that makes sense to me is, I mean, if you've been following the Russia-Ukraine conflict after Russia invaded Ukraine fully back in 2022, was it? If you've been following that conflict, you know that in the last, several months or to year, Ukraine has been ramping up attacks on Russia. They've been firing drones farther into Russia. They've been attacking Russia's oil infrastructure, oil refineries, and also recently a lot of logistics infrastructure like Wildberries, distribution centers and logistics centers. And also there's, I think another large company like Wildberries recently started getting attacked. But I can't remember. I think it's like Oman or something. I can look it up later. But my point is, and then Ukraine has also developed a missile, the Flamingo missile. They're making it domestically that they've started firing into Russia. So my point is that Russia is facing challenges in this invasion, and I think it just makes logical sense that if Putin thinks that the invasion of Ukraine is not going on a good trajectory for Russia, I have a hard time thinking that Putin's just going to be like, okay, well, whatever, and just kind of let it go on that negative trajectory. If he really thinks that there's a negative trajectory in this invasion, I would think it's entirely reasonable to think he would do something to try to change the situation. What he might do, I don't know, but it would certainly make sense to me that if he thinks the invasion is going the wrong way, that he would try to change something. So anyways, I think it's not crazy to think there could be some kind of strategic shift on the part of Russia. But who knows about the specifics? But we're just seeing, you're starting to see a bunch of just different reports about all in this world of Russia escalating in some sense or changing strategy. There have been a number of reports claiming that Russia might do some kind of major mobilization as well. All right. Anyways, so want to talk about that as well. Okay, so we're going to definitely be taking comments from you guys. So again, let me thank our moderators. We have Roberts Mayqueen. Roberts Mayqueen is moderating. Ruth is moderating over on YouTube. Thank you. And let's see here. We have moderating. The one thing I didn't do? The one thing I didn't do is I'll have to grab my glass of water. I somehow left my glass of water about 15 feet away from myself. So in a second, I'll have to grab my glass of water. Big Ball of Yarn, LB Prairie Dawn, Idaho Star. I got that fire and Surly Dev, all modding over on Twitch. Thank you so much. Also on Facebook, thanks to our mods over there. If you give me a second. Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha also mod for us on X and on Facebook. Thanks to our mods over there. Give me a moment here. I'm hearing audio I don't want to be hearing. Kay Larry Body's modding over there. Andrea Holder, thank you so much. And what I'm going to do, also, hey, thanks on YouTube. Thanks to Lethal Old Fart for being a member. Kerry Poteet, thanks for being a member. Amanda Mosher, thanks for being a member. Tyler Becker, thank you so much, Tyler Becker, for your support. I really appreciate that, Tyler. Kevin Orange, guy, thanks for being a member. And also, thank you so much to, on Twitch, Rakins for resubscribing. Hokies alum for resubscribing. And also, hold on a second here. I need to do one thing here. Thanks to Viking Briggs for subscribing on Twitch as well. Okay, so before we start, I have to take 6 seconds and grab my water glass. So I'm going to leave this headline on this. I'm going to disappear for about 6 seconds and grab my water glass. And give me 6 seconds to grab my water glass. Okay, it was more like 10 seconds. I have my glass of water. Okay, now, so let's start by talking about this meeting. You can see this headline here: U.S. spy chief visits Russia for meetings, media reports. Is this from, that's from yesterday. I want to give you the Washington Post article is from today. CIA director's secretive visit to Moscow stirs mystery. You know, sometimes I say Moscow and sometimes I say Moscow. And I believe I looked up in the dictionary for the US, it gives both of those pronunciations. When I came on the air, I said, I'm going to say Moscow. And I just find myself saying Moscow. So maybe I want to be consistent. Maybe I'll say Moscow. Somebody mentioned Nepal. We did a 3-hour stream covering the terrible situation in Nepal and Tibet earlier today. I might talk about it a little at the end of the stream, but in case you didn't know, we do have a stream on that where I showed some video and talked about it a lot. So if you want, you can go back and watch that stream. It was really terrible. But we're focusing on this for now. Okay. CIA Director John Ratcliffe was in Moscow on Tuesday, people familiar with the matter said, for a rare visit by a U.S. spy agency chief as Russia slogs through its 5th year of war in Ukraine. And again, I mean, he physically went there, right? He did physically go there. Which seems like something. And it was not something that was announced beforehand. So it certainly seems like something. A couple of our viewers are saying it wasn't secretive because it's been in the news. Yeah, but it was secretive because the fact that it's reported secretive does not mean literally nobody knows about it. There's different levels of secrecy. So the fact that it wasn't announced while it was happening and the official purpose of it has still not been announced, I think you can understand why it would be called secretive. CIA director was in Moscow on Tuesday, people familiar with the matter said, for a rare visit by a U.S. spy agency chief as Russia slogs through its 5th year of war in Ukraine. U.S. officials had not announced Ratcliffe's trip, but publicly available flight tracking data captured the movement of a U.S. government transport plane from Joint Base Andrews on the outskirts of Washington to the Russian capital. The aircraft departed Moscow about 8.5 hours later after it landed. Tracking data from Flight Radar 24 shows. Spokespeople for the CIA, the Pentagon, and the U.S. Air Force declined to comment. The White House did not respond to a request for comment. President Trump made some comments, I think, on a Glenn Beck radio show today. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Those familiar with Ratcliffe's trip to Russia spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the visit. It was not immediately clear what the trip's purpose was or whether any other senior U.S. officials were part of the U.S. delegation. I'm sorry. I made a, hold on a second here. Hold on a second. Where is the, hold on a second. I want to try to clarify something. Oh, no. Yeah, so no, Trump did talk to Glenn Beck today. So that was not a mistake. Yes, he did mention talking to Glenn Beck. He did talk. Yes, that was, he talking to Glenn Beck. He did mention it, but we'll talk about that a little later. So I thought I said something else, or I thought I made a mistake and I didn't make a mistake. So anyways, but let's go over, let's take things in order of, just in some kind of logical order here. Okay, so anyways, again, it was not immediately clear what the trip's purpose was or whether any other senior U.S. officials were part of the U.S. delegation, says the Washington Post. The Washington Post says Ratcliffe's visit to Moscow coincided with a fraught period in U.S.-Russian relations. Russia and Ukraine have stepped up long-range strikes on each other's territory with no end to the war in sight. Some analysts, this is what I was just talking about. We've talked about this previously. Some analysts have warned that Russian President Putin might escalate with military probes or attacks of some sort against Europe's Baltic countries or other NATO members, which could precipitate a new crisis. Also, the two superpowers, the US and Russia, are on opposite sides of the Iran conflict. Iran is Moscow's most important ally in the Middle East, and Russia has provided Tehran targeting intelligence on the location of US military assets in the region. The U.S. Treasury on Monday unveiled a sweeping campaign of sanctions and diplomatic pressure meant to asphyxiate Iran's economy. This morning, on Wednesday morning, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said in a briefing that John Ratcliffe did not meet with Putin and that the contacts were conducted through intelligence service channels. He did not expand on the purpose of the visit. By the way, I still don't know if John Ratcliffe met with Putin. I'm aware that the Kremlin spokesman says that John Ratcliffe did not meet with Putin. That to me is not 100% convincing evidence that John Ratcliffe did not meet with Putin. So I don't know if he did or didn't. That's just my personal view. When asked whether Moscow believes the visit by such a high-ranking U.S. official might have had a positive impact on Russian-American relations, the Kremlin spokesman Peskov said it would be premature to draw such a conclusion. Peskov said contacts through intelligence service channels are in themselves a positive phenomenon, a positive process. These contacts often continue even in the most difficult moments of bilateral relations. But whether this will affect on the whole the process of bringing our bilateral relations out of the deep crisis they are in, it's premature to say at this point, said the Kremlin spokesman. Okay. We're going to talk more about this article, has some more details. I want to take some comments from you guys. And again, the Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight that the CIA Director John Ratcliffe went to Russia to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. They say multiple people briefed on the visit told them, the Wall Street Journal, that John Ratcliffe, CIA director, went to Russia to warn Russia not to attack NATO countries. The Wall Street Journal says that that officials from the U.S. are concerned that that Russian President Putin, because of pressure at home and what's going on with difficulties in the Ukraine conflict, could launch some sort of attack, such as a cyber attack or some kind of small-scale land incursion. And the Wall Street Journal says that officials are concerned that such an attack might be on a Baltic nation, one of these Baltic countries in NATO. So that is what the Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight. Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. They're all members of NATO. So I want to take some comments from you. We're going to talk more about this. But that news just came out tonight before the stream. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. So let's take some of your comments here. See what you have to say. Justice N says, does Russia have enough trouble with Ukraine? Well, I guess what you're saying is why, I understand what your question is, which is why, if Russia is having difficulties militarily with Ukraine, would they want to, take on some other military activity? Which I understand the question. It's a reasonable question. I think the idea would be, though, is that they would do this in part because they're having difficulties in Ukraine. Now, you would have to construct some sort of deeper argument on why they thought it could help them. But for example, well, a couple things. One example would be that maybe they think it could divide NATO countries, and also maybe they think it could make NATO countries more hesitant to support Ukraine in the way they've been doing. That's one thing that Putin might think for various reasons. Another thing is maybe domestically, politically and domestically, he might think it's beneficial to him if he thinks people in Russia, are getting tired of the war. Maybe he, tries to change the subject or switch what's going on politically in the country. So these would be, I'm no expert on international relations, but these would be some kind of things that could be thinking of, that he could be thinking of. But yeah, it's not what it's not. The report is not saying, the Wall Street Journal report and other reports that have come out in recent weeks and months claiming that Putin is considering some sort of escalation against a NATO country. Those reports don't say Putin is going to launch a full-scale invasion of Poland or something like that. They're talking about some sort of provocation, which stirs up a crisis, maybe tries to divide NATO countries, or maybe tries to undermine that alliance by showing that some countries wouldn't help one of the other countries. So, but these reports don't suggest that there's some kind of full-scale invasion of a NATO country being planned. But I understand the question. Jay Amala says this is like a stiff jab from Russia. Alaskan Lost says Poland would wipe the floor with Russia. Let's see here. Dean R. thinks Putin is trying to test the resolve of the West. Let's see here. Miami Vice Fanatic says, what country would be the most likely target? Moldova? Well, I've seen different articles say different things. The Wall Street Journal article says that U.S. officials are concerned that Russia could launch some sort of attack on a Baltic country, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. There was an article we talked about on the air, I think about a few weeks ago. Was it the Telegraph? Or the Independent? I can't remember. And that report talked about Poland a bunch. I believe there has been talk of Moldova. I read an article recently that talked about, Kaliningrad. Am I remembering this right? Sometimes I make silly mistakes. There is an enclave of Russia, which is part of Russia, but separate, doesn't have a land connection to Russia. Where there's talk that something can have Kaliningrad. Right. So let me show you Kaliningrad. And there's talk that something could happen involving Kaliningrad, maybe some sort of an attempt to seize a land corridor that runs from Kaliningrad to the rest of Russia. Let me show you where that is, just so you're aware of it. Hang on. Right. Yeah, so see, it says Kaliningrad. That's Kaliningrad there. That's Russia. Kaliningrad is the capital of the Russian province of the same name, sandwiched between Poland and Lithuania along the Baltic coast. So there's Russia proper, and there's Kaliningrad. There. It's Russia, but it's separate from the rest of Russia. Oh, so like there's, could Russia try to seize some sort of land corridor between Kaliningrad and Russia's ally, Belarus? There's talk of that. So who knows? I don't know. But there's, I've seen different countries mentioned in different in different articles. For reference, the Baltic countries are Estonia. These are all in NATO: Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, right here. And here's Russia, and here's Russia's ally, Belarus. Oh, hold on a second here. Give me a sec. Give me 1 second. I want to take some more of your comments, give you more updates. Hang on. One moment, please. Hey, thanks, by the way, to History Honk for your support. Thank you to Kerry Poteet. You know, Kerry Poteet gave 20 people memberships in the YouTube chat. That's really nice of Kerry. Please thank Kerry or someone else if you get a gift membership or a gift chat from them or a gift subscription from them. Thank you so much, Kerry. Really nice of you. Evelyn in Maine, thanks for being a member. CAC, thanks for being a member. For 27 months, thank you. Lethal Old Fart, thanks for being a member. 1XCD. Thanks for your support. 1XCD says Russia has no interest in Poland, but there's a lot of EU activity around Kaliningrad. If an attack happens there, Russia won't hold back, says 1XCD. Hey, thanks so much to Stanislav Babenko. Thank you, Stanislav. Stanislav says to understand Russia's invasion motivations, you can't put it into a strategic framework. They will invade opportunistically, he says. They've done Chechnya, Georgia, Ukraine 2014 and 2022. Stanislav thinks likely Estonia next. Thank you, Stanislav. I really appreciate it. And Roberts Mayqueen, thanks for modding and being a member. Thank you, Roberts Mayqueen. Also, Gleggy, thanks for your support. Gleggy says, obviously, what was going on with this trip was not clear. No one knew about the trip, and the government did not comment. Literally, no one knows what it's for. That's what Gleggy says. Thank you, Gleggy, for your support on Twitch. And Viking Briggs and Rakins. I want to take a few more comments, and I want to give you some more updates on this. Slippy says NATO has permanent troops stationed in Baltic nations. I have to look that up. According to the Council on Foreign Relations, they say, I'm looking at an article from May, and they say there are 600 U.S. troops in Estonia. They don't have any listed in Latvia or Lithuania. They have 10,000 listed in Poland. But they also say that the troop numbers may differ from those reported by Department of Defense. That's from the Council on Foreign Relations. Katina Bach said, why did they need a massive plane for one person? I don't know how, the whole question about the plane is interesting. Let me see if I can find, I think Flight Radar 24 had posted about it, didn't they? Yes. RCH 44, see, this was Flight Radar 24. This was yesterday. An unusual visitor to Moscow this morning. U.S. Air Force C-17A Globemaster 3 flew from Riga to Moscow, Vnukovo Airport. As to why it was this particular plane that apparently was the one, that I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if it's protocol or some other reason. Oops, I need to sign in to Flight Radar 24. Let me sign in. Then I can show you. It was right. Riga to, Camp Springs to Riga. Yeah, Charleston to Camp Springs to Riga. Camp Springs to Riga. Wait. Oh, is it not on there? Now I'm confused. Moscow, Riga. Where's Riga to Moscow? Now I'm confused. Shouldn't there be a Riga to Moscow? It says a U.S. Air Force Globemaster flew from Riga to Moscow. Then when I go to the history, I see Moscow to Riga, but I don't see Riga to Moscow. I don't know what's up with that. Anyways, I'll show you the graphic that was posted by Flight Radar 24. I'm not making this up. They say, well, you can't see it all. Flight Radar 24 here. I'll put it here so you can actually see it. That was the flight, apparently. Boeing C-17A Globemaster 3, Riga, Latvia to Moscow. Okay, now. All right, let's talk about some more details of this. We're going to take some more comments on this, but let's talk about some more details of this trip. So, if you're just joining us, the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, made a secretive trip on a U.S. military plane to Moscow on Tuesday. He was there for a number of hours and then left. The purpose of the trip was not announced beforehand. It was not announced during, and the government has not confirmed what the trip was for. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight, shortly before we came on the air. The Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight. Their sources say that the CIA director went to Russia to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. And they say that U.S. officials are concerned, given that Putin, given political pressure at home, given some difficulties in the war in Ukraine, could launch some sort of attack, likely on a Baltic country, one of the NATO countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Some sort of attack, possibly a cyber attack, possibly a limited land incursion, but something. And there has been talk, there's been reporting in recent weeks and months saying that Russia could escalate by attacking a NATO country or launching some kind of provocation on a NATO country. But again, the Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight. They say that the purpose of this trip was to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. That's what they say. That has not been confirmed by the U.S. government. I haven't seen any other media outlet report that yet. The selling wizard says it could have been an email. Well, it seems like apparently it couldn't have been an email if he was actually there. Yeah, Harley Guy says you don't send over a member of your cabinet over there to have a cup of coffee. I do think there's something to the fact that he literally physically went there on an unannounced trip. So let's, I want to continue with some of these details from this article. We were going over this Washington Post article. We mentioned in the Washington Post, they talked about how on Wednesday morning, the Kremlin spokesman didn't really give much detail. He claimed that Ratcliffe did not meet with Putin. He claimed that the contacts were conducted through intelligence service channels. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. It's possible to me that he did meet with Putin and they're just not saying it. I don't know. The last known visit by a CIA director to Moscow was in November 2021 when William J. Burns, who led the CIA under President Biden, warned Putin and his top aides not to attack Ukraine and spelled out what the consequences would be. Within weeks, Moscow then launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So again, that was the last known visit by a CIA director to Moscow, November 2021, where William Burns, the CIA director under Biden, warned Putin not to attack Ukraine. Ratcliffe's visit to Moscow, says the Washington Post, came as Ukrainian long-range strikes into Russia, including the capital Moscow, have targeted energy infrastructure and online retail facilities, unnerving, disturbing the population. And that's really something that's happened in recent months. You have these longer range Ukrainian drones that have been hitting oil refineries, have been hitting wild berries, which is like their Amazon, wild berries, logistics centers and warehouses. And some of these attacks are coming in the Moscow region. Russia has also stepped up drone and missile strikes on Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, and elsewhere, exploiting shortfalls of air defense resources. President Trump, at a NATO summit in Turkey in July, appeared to grant Ukraine's long-standing request that it be able to produce U.S.-designed Patriot air defense missiles on its soil. President Trump, though, later backed away from that promise. There were also reports that I saw this week that, what was the report about the British Prime Minister saying that that Andy Burnham saying that that they would allow Ukraine to have access to technology or classified information that would allow Ukraine to produce a certain sort of missile. Let me see if I can find that really quick here, because who knows, that could be another thing that's on Putin's mind. Andy Burnham. Hang on a second. Yes, right here. Is this it? Is this it? Yes, right here. This is from Monday. From this Monday, Britain, France pledged stronger support as Ukraine marks Independence Day. If you go down here, it says, interceptors. Yes. Britain announced on Monday it would allow Ukraine access to classified technology to start its own production of Storm Shadow long-range cruise missiles capable of carrying out strikes deep within Russia. France has already given its assent to license the technology for the European missile. I believe that the missile has both French and British technology in it. And now France and Britain, I guess, have given the go-ahead for Ukraine to produce them. In response, the Kremlin said the use of classified British technology would add fuel to the fire of their worsening relations after it warned London last week there would be consequences for supplying drones to Kyiv. So that's something else that's happened recently. And then just to go back to this, then we'll take some more of your comments. The U.S. aircraft that apparently carried the CIA director to Moscow, a C-17A Globemaster III, is the Defense Department's workhorse heavy transport plane. The airframe is especially valuable for sensitive diplomatic visits, allowing leaders to bring a tailored suite of specialized vehicles, electronic equipment, and support personnel. That's interesting. So what they're saying is that for a sensitive diplomatic visit, you might want to have your own vehicles, your own electronic equipment, and a bunch of personnel. And a C-17A transport plane would be good for that. A second U.S. Air Force plane, a C-40B, also took off from Joint Base Andrews and landed in Riga, Latvia, several hours after the C-17A arrived in Riga, Latvia. Publicly available flight tracking data does not show the C-40B on the next flight to Moscow. The aircraft is a modified business jet. I guess, so given that, and I'm sorry, I didn't even know about this detail. Maybe some of you did, so I'm sorry. So it's possible that he didn't fly on the C-17A, but that other people and equipment flew on it, and he flew on the C-40B. It looks like there maybe were at least two planes in that, I guess, convoy or something. A video shared on social media Tuesday and geolocated by the Washington Post showed a motorcade of cars, some with red diplomatic plates, driving east on New Arbat Avenue in central Moscow near a Russian Armed Forces building. The C-17A took off from Moscow shortly after 5:30 p.m. local time and landed in Riga a little more than an hour later. A data from flight radar shows. By the way, a C-40B Air Force is this. This is a C-40B designed to be an office in the sky for senior military and government leaders. So apparently that plane made the trip too. And Knots Out thinks probably a couple fighter planes. I don't know. That's a good question. Would Russia have the U.S. fly fighter planes over Russia and to Russia and escort it? I don't know about that. I have no idea. I don't know how that works. It's an interesting thought. And again, the Wall Street Journal, for those who haven't heard, is reporting tonight. They report that the reason that the CIA director, on Tuesday, went to Russia in an unannounced visit in person was to warn them to not attack NATO countries. They say that this visit followed new U.S. intelligence assessments that President Putin might try to test NATO resolve with some sort of limited assault on an allied country in the coming years. There have been some different reports. The Wall Street Journal reported about that. There's I have to find that other report that we talked about on the air several weeks ago. So that is what the Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight. They claim that is what the visit was for. B. Earhart says, why not just a phone call? Let's see here. Silent Ways says, sure it was ... So I guess Silent Ways doesn't buy that. Yeah, again, so Soupson says, and Flight Radar 24 picked this all up, and it was supposed to be a CIA secret mission. Yeah, I've gotten several of these comments in the chat, and there's different ways to interpret the word secretive. The word secret is not only used to mean literally no one knows about it, right? The fact that no one is told about it beforehand, and to this moment, no one has been told officially the purpose of it, those are secretive things. So the very fact that we know this happened and that you could follow it on flight radar does not mean there's nothing secretive about the trip. Someone online at some point, I don't know if it was an article, I read something somewhere saying that, hey, the fact that it was on flight radar and it's a U.S. military plane, those could all be things designed to send diplomatic messages. But again, This comment that it's not secretive because we know about it just ignores obvious ways in which it does have very secretive aspects. I don't mean to pick on anybody in particular, but I've just seen this comment multiple times, and it's like, well, I think it's pretty obvious that there were secretive aspects to it. Let's see here. Udia, our viewer, thinks that U.S. fighter jets would absolutely not escort into Russia. This is a big deal to send the CIA chief. Yolande Gingras says more powerful in person. Yeah, and I don't know, who knows? We could come up with all kinds of stories. There's a world in which that was the thought that, like, if we're going to warn them, maybe the message seems more strong if we send somebody in person. Mana Gwens thinks it's to ask for help with Iran. Mick Squeal says, from Russia with love. Blake thinks a phone call isn't serious enough to get a message across. Trump's pool guy thinks Wall Street Journal is just trying to stir the pot. That's what it sounds like, thinks Trump's pool guy. Mark Washburn says one of the Baltic states or the gap in Poland. All right, let's see here. The uranium says digital communications can be traced, but in person it's really a lot harder. D. Mindel CRSIAW thinks Russia is going to hit Europe after this meeting discussion. One Site Productions thinks it has to do with the threat of the hit Iran put on Trump's son. By the way, thanks so much to Crazy Yoda LEO. Thank you, Crazy Yoda. Yes, Crazy Yoda, we mentioned this in the article that in the Washington Post article talked about how the last known visit by a CIA director to Moscow was in November of 2021, when the CIA director under Biden went to warn Putin and his aides not to attack Ukraine. And then later, Russia did attack Ukraine. Thank you, Crazy Yoda. Thank you so much also, Tim Oliver Music, who says most of the time high-ranking diplomats travel with a security team and vehicles. Thank you, Tim Oliver Music. I appreciate that. Thanks for your offer as well. I appreciate that. Honeybee Fly, thanks for being a member. Thanks, One Act CD, who says that is not abnormal. Countries frequently bring their own vehicles regardless of country or reason or for visit. Thank you, Cynthia Moon, 9100, for being a member. Thank you, most trustworthy Machiavelli. Thank you. Thank you, Bass 3003, who says, if nothing else, it's practical. There's no room for plausible deniability if you shoot down a C-17 and try to say it was an accident. Thanks also Samuel DeMarco, who thinks they were carrying a portable skiff for meetings that could not be monitored by Russia, as well as an armored vehicle, per several reports on Telegram I looked into. Samuel DeMarco thinks that the U.S. was carrying its own facility that I guess was secure so that they would meet in. Is that something Russia would do? Would Russia would the CIA director come to Russia and set up its own portable facility to meet in? That's an interesting thought. I don't know that Russia would allow that. Wouldn't Russia be like, well, what's in your portable facility? But interesting comment. Thank you, Samuel DeMarco, for your support. Also, Jason Parent Jason thinks Russia, thanks for your support. Jason thinks Russia may seek to test NATO's resolve and the practical limits of Article 5, helping Russia gauge how much latitude it has for further aggression. Without a unified response. Thanks, Jason Parent, for writing in. Thanks, 1ACD, who says, look up Fort Indian Town Gap and the relationship to LT. We do routine training and exercises with LT. It's common knowledge. Maybe in a little bit I can look that up. Thanks, 1ACD. I appreciate it. Thanks also, SM Kasara. And also, again, Jason Parent. Thanks so much, Jason, for your support. Jason also thinks that the CIA visit may be about making sure Russia knows exactly how the NATO what the NATO position is and what NATO's limits are. Thanks also, Holy Earth. Holy Earth says, no way it was about something years away. This is serious. Thanks, Holy Earth. Thanks, GV161. GV161, thank you. Flat for Life, thank you. Who says, I wonder if it could be due to Russia's prep to use for its new Skyfall nuclear-powered cruise missile it is threatening Ukraine with. That's what Flat for Life says. Thanks also, Evan Big Price, who thinks it's about the currency rates reset / bond market. Thanks, Gary F95, who says, scary times ahead. And thanks, GVI161. All right, I want to give you some more updates here. Give me a moment. Give me one moment, please. Okay, so we're bringing you live coverage here. Oh, a quick thanks to our moderators. I really appreciate them being in the chats as we are on live. Bastion Girl, Big Ball of Yarn, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Matthew Kohai 3, and Sarah, all moderating on Twitch. Thank you. Linda Belk, Larry, Misha moderate for us on X. Deadwing, Roberts May Queen on YouTube. Ruth, thank you so much for moderating over there. Linda, and also our Facebook mods. Very much appreciated. Hold on. Now I can't find that. Oh, there it is. Hold on a moment. Kay Lowry Body is modding. I think Andrea Holder was there modding too. J.R. Prusky on Facebook says they went to beg Putin to stop LOL. I don't know if he thinks it's funny or he or she, I think it's a he, thinks it's funny, or if he thinks it's true, he thinks it's false or true from the comment. There's different ways to interpret that comment. Okay, now let's talk about, give me a moment here. Dark Lacuna, our viewer, thinks Russia will attack a NATO country soon. Darren Lee thinks UK is in Russia's sights for supplying missiles to Ukraine, and they have been very clear on that. All right, hang on a moment here. Oh, one moment here. I'll be interested to see if any other news outlets report what the Wall Street Journal is reporting tonight, which is that they claim that the CIA director went to Russia to warn Russia to not attack a NATO country. Update. We have a news update. CBS News now matching the Wall Street Journal report. CBS News says the purpose of the CIA director's visit was to warn Russia to not attack NATO member states. They say he did bring up Iran too, warning there would be additional sanctions if the Strait of Hormuz did not reopen. Okay. Again, so CBS News is matching the purpose of CIA Director John Ratcliffe. So CBS News says CIA director's visit was to warn Russia not to attack NATO member states. They say that's amid intelligence from the U.S. that Russia could try to test NATO. New update that just came out about in the last half hour. Give me 1 sec. I'm posting this. Wow. Let me just get this posted. So, CBS News is now matching the Wall Street Journal report. They are also saying that the purpose of the CIA director's visit to Russia on Tuesday, the purpose of it was to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. That comes as the U.S. has intelligence assessments that Russia could try to test NATO, says CBS News. Wow. Now, also, CBS News does point out, now this has been reported elsewhere, that President Trump did confirm that the visit happened when he talked to radio host Glenn Beck on Wednesday. Now, Trump said he called it a semi-routine trip. Trump said it was not related to Iran or Russian desires to test NATO, according to CBS News. I have not listened to it myself, but that's what Trump said. But hold on a second. Let me just see if there's anything else I want to mention here. I posted a link to the CBS News article on my X account. Just see something here. By the way, thanks so much to our viewer, Jignasha Machi. Jignasha Machi, thank you so much for your support of the channel. Really appreciate it. Give me a second here. So CBS News says, and there's been other reporting that says this too, like the Wall Street Journal, says that recently there have been U.S. intelligence assessments that Putin could order provocative actions against NATO countries. That could be anything ranging from a cyber attack, a hybrid action, something short of conventional military action. The Wall Street Journal talked about the possibility of a limited land incursion. And they say the goal of this, CBS News says the goal of this, according to U.S. officials, wouldn't necessarily be to start a war, but to test NATO's unity and also to test the Trump administration's willingness to support NATO allies. Now, remember, there have been some interesting incidents involving Russia in recent months. We covered a drone that hit a building in Romania, did we not? That was reportedly a Russian drone. Also, there was the armed drone or drones that were spotted at an airport in Germany. Was it Leipzig? And CBS News also mentions one which was a missile that crossed into Poland last month. So been a number of these events recently, these kind of things happening recently. Wow. Wow, guys. All right, I want to take some comments from you on this. But again, breaking news, CBS News matching the Wall Street Journal in reporting that the purpose of the CIA director's trip was to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. Wow. 001 USA says, stop the war now. We'll see if anybody else reports on this. All right, I'm going to take some comments in a second here. Give me a quick moment, just checking a couple things. Our viewer Wall Street says the timeline must be close then. I was looking to see, I don't know if anything's been, if the Institute for the Study of War has said anything about it. I'm sure they will at some point. I'm looking at their latest report and I don't see anything. Did they have a report yesterday where they talked about this? Let's see. Hang on. Nah, it's very, very, very brief. Well, we'll see if any other outlets report on this. But now we have two. Now we have two reporting it. All right, let me take some more comments from you guys. Maybe we'll do a poll. Maybe we'll do a poll. All right, we should do a poll. Let's do a poll. The poll, how can I say this? Now, if I just make the poll, will Putin launch a provocation in a NATO country? I mean, arguably, you could say, well, that has already happened. So yeah, I have to do a better job of defining provocation. Romania is a NATO country. Poland's a NATO country. So how can we will Putin launch a significant escalation of some sort? That's going to be too long a poll question. Will Putin escalate? How about escalate against a NATO country in the coming year? How's that? So that's escalating is not like a drone flies over a country or hits, or there's like an accident with a Russian drone, an accident where the drone hits another country, or an accident where a Russian missile flies over another country. It's got to be something at a higher level than that, right? So the question I'm going to ask in our poll is, will Putin escalate against a NATO country in the next year? That's how I'm I know it sounds a little vague, but it's kind of hard to define in a brief poll question. All right, so let me, and I leave it to you, but I think we can try to have I don't think it's unreasonable to think we can have a general idea of what escalation might mean. All right, so I just posted it on YouTube and Twitch, and I am now posting it on Facebook. Okay, let's see here. Let me just get it posted on Facebook. Oops. Give me a moment. Then we'll take some more comments from you guys. Now, what did I do now? What did I do now? Hold on. I appreciate people tuning into the stream. We are here live. I am in Barcelona, Spain, but still we are giving you news coverage, breaking news coverage. One moment. All right, I am posting it on Facebook now, and now I will show you what people say. So what I want to do is get rid of this, and let's see what, first of all, let's see what YouTube said. Oh, I gotta pull it up here. I am pulling up the poll results. Okay, I asked you, will Putin escalate against a NATO country in the next year? We're close on YouTube, close to 70% on YouTube say yes right now. 69% yes, 31% no. How about on Twitch? And Facebook. Let's see what it's like over there. On Facebook, it is 70% yes, very close to YouTube. And on Twitch, it is one moment, please. More even on Twitch. I don't know if we can trust Twitch anymore after the debacle with the poll question about the Darlene Graham election. Huh? Twitch chat? Can we trust you anymore on anything? I'm just joking. I'm just joking about Twitch. Twitch is 50-50. On this question. Actually, Twitch is now 52% no. And FX on Twitch says, I feel attacked. All right, so a little bit of a difference. Twitch is even right now. YouTube is 70-30 yes. I will say this, no matter what happens, no matter what ends up happening, if it's true, what both now the Wall Street Journal and CBS News are both reporting, that the purpose of the CIA director's unannounced trip to Moscow was to warn Moscow to not attack NATO countries, that's a pretty big story. Even if nothing ends up happening, if that's true, it's a pretty big story. Oh, I forgot the poll graphic. I have the poll graphic for you. Here's an instant replay of you guys thinking about the poll. Oh, look, you're thinking about it. And here's a replay of you voting. There, you just voted. I forgot. Miss Pennywise says he did not need to travel there to tell them that. Josh says NATO and the USA wouldn't have gone through days of training exercises last week against Kaliningrad for nothing? Did NATO and the USA go through days of training exercises last week against Kaliningrad? Now, I would think Kaliningrad, again, is an enclave of Russia, west of Russia proper. I would think that that's just a common thing that they're aware of. Hold on a second here. Gemini says that, they have a report. For example, Turkey's Anadolu agency reported that NATO had an air exercise near Russia's Kaliningrad region. They say that that exercise came days after Bild newspaper in Germany reported what it described as a NATO concept for responding to a possible Russian attack on Baltic states. And the reported concept includes possible strikes against the Kaliningrad region. Yeah, I don't know. It sounds like there were NATO exercises near Kaliningrad last week. I can't really speak to what the purpose of those were and if they're related to recent developments specifically. It's an interesting question. Oops. All right. So the poll, let me just show you what happened in the poll. Let me just get the poll finished. Again, final number, 69 yes, 31 no. Will Putin escalate against a NATO country in the next year on YouTube? And Twitch goes with a no. 53 no and 47 yes over on Twitch. Thanks for voting in the poll. And also, I have to end the poll here. Hang on, I got to thank a couple more people too. Give me a second. I'm behind on everything. And on Facebook, the number was... Where did we end up on Facebook? 67% said yes, 33% said no on Facebook. Hey, by the way, thanks to our viewer, again, GV161 for your support. Really appreciate it. Thank you to 1xCD for all your support. 1xCD says yes to escalation, no to NATO unless provoked. Thank you, Minutemen Revived, who claims Shahbaz Sharif to announce sequencing agreed on Iran-US deal in the next 48 hours. I don't know if Minutemen Revived read that report somewhere. I will say, that the Pakistani Prime Minister, Shahbaz Sharif, if Pakistan made some announcement that a U.S.-Iran deal was close, I would not myself feel quite confident based on that announcement alone that a U.S.-Iran deal was closed. I would have, and honestly, even if Iran and the U.S. signed a deal at this point, I would not be very confident that new fighting would not break out because they already did have a deal. So there's going to have to be a lot that happens for me to be convinced that the fighting is over, and that the Strait of Hormuz is opening up. Ad break says even if they signed a deal. Anyways, Minutemen Revive, though, I appreciate your support, and I appreciate, I haven't seen that report myself, but maybe I just missed it, but I'll be on the lookout, Minutemen Revive, so thank you. Also, thank you so much to Stanislav Babenko, who says, as much as I am familiar with the worldview and general attitude over in Russia, not a big fan. For some reason, I highly doubt they'd be brazen enough to escalate against NATO directly. Total gut call. Thank you, Stanislav. Thanks, Dr. Dillamon, for being a member for over 60 months. Thank you for your donation. Who thinks Russia and Iran seem to be propping up China by stressing NATO supply chains and economies from the Strait Taiwan soon? That's what thank you for your donation said. Thanks for your support. Crypto King, thanks for your support, and thanks for shouting out the moderators. The Mon Captain said, maybe you covered it already, but there were some reports of Poland moving tanks to the border. A couple people on X sent me these claims from kind of random accounts I've never heard of, claiming that Poland was moving tanks to the border. I have not seen any source that I would consider reliable, that I have any familiarity with, report that Poland was moving tanks to the border in any kind of unplanned, unknown about way. So I have no reliable reporting that anything like that is taking place. I will certainly, if there's a source I'm familiar with that I would think is reliable and would have some reason to know this, report that there is an unplanned, concerning movement of Polish tanks to the border. I will certainly let you know. Thank you so much. Thank you for your donation. I mean the Mon Captain. Thank you, the Mon Captain. Gary F95, thank you. Gary said, is it normal for Poland to gather tanks near the border with Kaliningrad? Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I will say this. Given the talk that's been in the air, right? I mean, I just told you that the Wall Street Journal and CBS News are reporting that the CIA director went to Russia to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. So if that's true, and those reports both say that U.S. intelligence thinks that Putin at some point could try to launch some sort of provocation, some sort of attack against a NATO country. If the U.S. really does have that kind of intelligence, well, then it would certainly make sense that NATO countries, especially countries near Russia like Poland and the Baltic states, would undertake some sort of military preparations. So I'm not saying that no preparations are going on. I would just be careful about these rumors that fly around the internet. So I'm not saying that something couldn't be happening. And it would make sense that countries would take preparations if this intelligence, if the reports of the U.S. intelligence are correct, that this is U.S. intelligence. At the same time, I would be quite careful about, all these rumors flying around. Thank you, Gary F95. I really appreciate it. Also, most trustworthy Machiavelli, and Hal 90015 for being a member. Okay, and let's see here. Wee Weed says Putin will not hit NATO. He can't even beat Ukraine. And again, I just want to mention, the reporting does not say that Putin's going to launch a full-scale attack on NATO. The idea would be some kind of action that might, say, weaken NATO, also possibly help him politically at home. I mean, you can think of reasons that Putin might try to do something short of launching a full-scale invasion to take over, a NATO country. Those are not what the reports are saying. Test resolve. And again, maybe Putin wants to do something in order to maybe Putin wants to make Ukraine question whether NATO countries are really committed to supporting it, or to make NATO countries concerned a bit more by supporting Ukraine, or hesitant. Maybe he sees some kind of deterrent factor in doing something like this. I don't know. Yeah, I do want to talk about this Bloomberg report today because I thought it was quite interesting. We should talk about that. Oh, hold on a moment here. Hold on a moment. News update. News update. It's time for our news update graphic. Oops, that didn't work. Why didn't this work? Oh, hold on. It'll work in a second. It looks like another ship has been attacked by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. UK MTO has received. Now, it looks like the report date is the 25th. It's officially the 27th in... Gosh, I don't even know where I am right now. I am in Spain. It's 3:29 a.m. here. So it's I assume in the UK it's the 27th now. So the report is from the 25th. So the report is from Tuesday. But they're just coming out with this now. They say UK MTO has received a report of an incident in the Strait of Hormuz. Local authorities have reported a tanker has been hit by an unknown projectile, causing fire to the vessel, which has since been extinguished. All crew are reported as safe and accounted for, and there has been no report of environmental impact. Authorities are investigating. That certainly looks like another ship attacked by the Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. That just came out about a half an hour ago. SDF says very rude. Tiberius says not again. Devil Doc says that's all Iran can do. Occasionally hit a ship, can't even sink them. I don't know if it's that they can't sink them. I mean, there would be reasons that Iran would, there would be reasons Iran would not want to do more damage to ships. Iran might think politically it's not very helpful for them, first of all, to, sink ships and kill people on the ships. Also, Iran has talked about before the possibility of ramping up the nature of their attacks on ships. So it's possible that they want to have an ability to escalate, a threat to escalate by making the attacks more serious on ships. That I don't know. I don't know, but I wouldn't be positive that they can't sink ships. It's very possible that it's a choice they're making on how to go about attacking these ships. One of the viewers asked, Art V says, how did these news stations know what the reason for the CIA is doing this? So what happens is news outlets have people who talk to them. They know the people. It's not that they pick up the phone and there's like a voice on the other end and says, hey, I have a tip for you. I'm not going to tell you who I am, but I'm very closely placed. No, they know exactly who they're talking to. And people will leak stuff, for example, but they feel confident enough in who these people are that are telling them these things. But the people say, don't use my name. It's not, they don't give them permission to use their name. But the publications know who they're talking to. And both the Wall Street Journal and CBS News have sources that they feel confident in that have told them that this is the reason. So, I mean, these places have, I'm sure the various sources, Fox News or the Journal or whoever, they all have their connections, and different reporters have connections in the government and other highly placed people. So that's what they're basing it on. Now, I want to mention I want to talk about this Bloomberg report today. And just to go over what we're covering. Give me one quick moment here. Give me one quick moment here. One moment. One moment, please. Just to go over what we're covering. The CIA director visited Russia in person. This was not announced in advance. The U.S. government has still not confirmed why he did this. He went to Moscow on a U.S. Air Force plane, apparently, on Tuesday. And tonight, Wall Street Journal and CBS News have both reported tonight that the purpose of the visit was to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. Both outlets say there is U.S. intelligence that Putin could launch some sort of attack, not a full invasion, but some sort of attack, whether we're talking about a cyber attack, a small-scale land incursion, some kind of hybrid warfare attack on a NATO country in the future. Both the CBS News and Wall Street Journal reports say that U.S. intelligence is concerned about this. Endgame Clown says an in-person visit was necessary for that. Let's see here. So I want to mention this Bloomberg report today because it was quite interesting in light of all that we've been talking about tonight. Bloomberg has a report today, okay? And the headline of the Bloomberg report is Putin moves to escalate war in Ukraine with talks at dead end. So you can look this up on Bloomberg. So a couple things that Bloomberg talks about in this report. First of all, they say, Bloomberg, that Russia is preparing to escalate attacks on Ukraine. Now, there's a question of what that would mean, actually. And they say that Russia believes that negotiations for peace deal are at a dead end right now. And they say that Bloomberg says Russia is considering intensifying their ballistic missile attacks on the capital, including the center of the capital, and also talking about going after infrastructure targets in other Ukrainian cities. Now, remember, there has been a bunch of reporting in the last couple of months that basically says Ukraine basically cannot shoot down Russian ballistic missiles anymore because Ukraine is essentially out of interceptors. Without getting into all the details, there are multiple reports recently in various media outlets over the last couple months that I have seen. We talked about some on the air that claim that Ukraine is basically cannot shoot down or has very little ability to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles anymore because they don't have the interceptors anymore. Because you might say, well, I mean, can Russia, is there really room for Russia to escalate? But maybe, they've been holding off on going after certain sensitive targets in Kyiv, or maybe instead of going after targets around the country, they'd focus on the capital. I don't know exactly what such an escalation would look like. But that's being reported by Bloomberg. But another interesting part about this article. Oh, also, Bloomberg said that Russia increasingly sees the strikes by Ukraine. So remember, in recent months, what's happened? Ukraine has increased its long-range strikes into Russia. It's been using longer-range drones. It's been also attacking Russia's oil refineries. It's been going after lots of warehouses of basically the Russian Amazon wild berries, warehouses and logistics centers, really, and extending its, and using its new Flamingo missiles, really extending the intensity and the length of the range of its attacks into Russia. So that's been going on. Bloomberg says that Russia is increasingly seeing Ukrainian attacks on Russia as attacks by NATO states, because NATO states supply Ukraine with weapons and intelligence. Okay? So now you might say, well, hasn't NATO been giving weapons to Ukraine for years? Yes, but remember, the degree of strikes by Ukraine into Russia has really ramped up in recent months. So that's interesting. That's an interesting part of this report. And then also, something else in this report that really caught my eye. Well, before I mention that, Bloomberg also says that given that they don't see a diplomatic route right now that's going to get them where they want to be, the Kremlin thinks that that they don't really see much alternative to escalating. But this really caught my eye in the article. The article devoted several paragraphs, this Bloomberg article today, and again, you can read it if you want. It's called "Putin Moves to Escalate War with Ukraine, with Talks at a Dead End." The article devotes several paragraphs to talking about the possibility that President Putin could use tactical nuclear weapons against the Ukrainian forces and in the Ukrainian conflict. So Bloomberg says that this is what Bloomberg says, a growing number of Russian officials believe Putin could eventually decide to use tactical nuclear weapons as a last resort in Ukraine. They say a growing number of Russian officials believe this. They also say that for years, the Western officials have been concerned that Russia could break the global taboo against using any kind of nuclear weapons. Remember, they were only used twice by the U.S. in 1945 against Japan. That's the only time they've ever been used. Also, Bloomberg reports that there is an increasing volume of talk in Russia from war hawks who are in support of using tactical nuclear weapons. And also, Bloomberg reports that it is viewed that it's seen as possible that Putin could take such an extreme step because he would never accept what he believes is losing the war against Ukraine. Now, they do say in the article, there's no sign Russia yet is preparing to use such weapons. But I did find it striking that they just took a big chunk of this article to talk about it. And, just another one of these reports we're seeing claiming we're just seeing a lot of these reports lately claiming that Putin could escalate. It's not the exact same report as the report that the Wall Street Journal and the CBS News have, that the CIA Director went on Tuesday, they claimed to Russia to warn Russia to not attack NATO countries. And they say that this comes out of U.S. intelligence, that Putin could escalate against a NATO country in the future. So it's a bit different than that, but it's just another one of these reports that's floating around talking about the possibility that Putin could escalate things. And again, I'll just say again, I don't know what's going to happen. I certainly think it would be an extreme thing for Putin to use a tactical nuclear weapon. But at the same time, I'll say what I said at the start of the stream. It does make sense. If Putin thinks the Ukraine war is not going well, if he thinks it's not on a good trajectory, right? What's happened in recent months? Ukraine is launching more and more strikes deeper into Russia. They're hitting, they're reportedly fuel shortages in Russia because they've been hitting all these oil refineries. They're hitting all of these wild berries facilities. Wild berries is like the Amazon in Russia, and they're developing their missile capacity. They've developed these Flamingo missiles. I showed you the story that just a couple days ago, the British Prime Minister announced that that the UK has approved giving, classified information to Ukraine to allow them to produce their own version of this missile that I believe France and the UK makes and gives to them. Yeah, again, I'm just from this, just to go back to this, Reuters reported a couple days ago that Prime Minister Burnham, that Britain announced on Monday it would allow Ukraine access to classified technology to start its own production of Storm Shadow long-range cruise missiles, capable of carrying out strikes deep within Russia. So, I mean, if you're Putin, he's definitely, I would assume he's seeing more attacks by Ukraine developing more weapons domestically, more powerful, longer-range weapons. He is, I would think, unless he's being lied to all the time, aware that there's not been huge territorial gains recently by the Russian army. It's very possible, there's reporting claiming that people in Russia, and it would make sense, are getting more tired of this war, and the costs of the war to Russia. It would be reasonable to think that Putin thinks, maybe this war isn't on the best trajectory right now. Maybe the longer it goes on, there's more risk of, if we keep letting it go the way it's going, Ukraine's going to develop more and more weapons. They're going to be firing at them at us. People in Russia are going to get more. There's a political risk from people in Russia's view on the war. So it seems very reasonable to me, if that's what Putin is thinking, that he would say, we need to change this somehow. How he would change it, I have no idea. There's all kinds of ways you can change it. Obviously, one way you could change it is to stop the war. I don't see much reporting saying Putin's going to do that, however. So what might he do? But I do think it's entirely reasonable, and arguably it's a logical conclusion to draw, that Putin would want to change Russian strategy in some sort of way, because he would see this trajectory is not promising right now. Now, Amy Celeste says he's not rational nor reasonable. Well, I understand what you're saying in that maybe he sees things, he has different views than a lot of people are. He did undertake an invasion of Ukraine, assuming apparently that it would be done in a few days. So he did do that. But saying he's not rational, that can mean different things. But I wouldn't say that he's just a completely crazy person who is just babbling nonsense all the time. He does have certain goals for Russia, it certainly appears. Now, you might think that the assumptions, some of his assumptions are just wild assumptions, and some of his beliefs are crazy beliefs. I understand that, but he certainly has certain things he wants for Russia, and he does certainly seem to want to, for example, take the entire Donetsk region. in Ukraine. So again, I don't think it's unreasonable. I actually think it's reasonable to think that Putin would consider doing something to change the trajectory of the war. Okay, hold on a second here. Let me take some comments from you guys. Roy thinks Putin is smart, cunning, and evil. All right, let me take some comments from you guys. And look, another possibility with these stories, which should be mentioned, is obviously Russia could want it out there that Putin is thinking of escalating as a deterrent, right? Somebody might say, well, Russia's just putting these stories out there to make the West scared, to make Ukraine scared, to make countries think twice before provoking Russia. Fine, it could be true. I will say, though, one thing to kind of keep in mind is Russia, they really did launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I remember we covered the Ukraine story for months, and there were people, it was just obvious that Russia had put a huge portion of its army on the border of Ukraine. And so many people in the chat kept yelling and saying over and over again, why are you reporting on this? Nothing's going to happen. Nothing ever happens. He's not going to do it. It's just crazy. I can't believe you're saying this is realistic. Well, he did do it. It really did happen. And over 4 years later, this is still going on. So, yeah, fear-mongering. Yeah, as one of our viewers said, just fear-mongering. How many months did we have to have people's sidewalk connoisseur mention that? For months, people just kept yelling and saying it was fear-mongering. Well, I mean, it just seemed like, my argument at the time was, I don't know what's going to happen, but if they have 100-something thousand troops on the border, it seems like more than just a, like a joke or something or a bluff. Whatever it is. You know what? I got so distracted. I saw my water bottle, and I was so distracted I didn't realize I have my glass here too. I don't have my mug with me here, so I have to use alternate methods of drinking water. Anyways, you got to see a water bottle. Yeah, I would not just assume. This is a person who has a clear track record. He launched an invasion, a full-scale invasion of Ukraine when many thought that was just a crazy thing to do, right? He did do it. He did do it. So I would not put it past Putin to do something else that some people might think is crazy. By the way, a quick thanks to 1xCD. 1xCD says 150,000 soldiers is not a full-scale invasion. Sorry, but I disagree. If that's what you think, fine. Apparently, 1xCD thinks that Russia did not launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Thank you, 1xCD, for your support. I really appreciate it. Thank you also, Joe9611, who says, has Putin ever just asked nicely for Ukraine? Thank you. Thank you also, Data Relay, who says Russia's main weapon is BS, aka Russia propaganda. Thank you, Michael Abbott. Michael says 5 F-35s on the way to Poland right now. Call signs retro 61 to 65. I don't know if you're talking about flight radar. I don't really myself get into trying to draw conclusions from reports about aircraft movements because I honestly have no idea what normal movements are. And so, if I hear like there's some aircraft flying here, for all I know, there's regularly aircraft flying there of certain type. I will keep an eye out. There's people I follow who are much more familiar with what's regular and what's irregular with planes. I have not seen any kind of reports from any of those accounts or people tonight claiming that there's some kind of hugely important or concerning movement of aircraft, but I'll certainly keep an eye out for it. Thank you so much, Michael Abbott 114. I really appreciate your support for the channel. And also, hang on a moment here. Kindra Fox, thanks for your support, Kindra Fox, over on Twitch. Thanks, Snapfish, for subscribing on Twitch. Really appreciate it. And let's see here. Hang on a moment. I want to take some more comments from you guys. So where is this all going? Tyler Rogaway, who I follow, he is the person who created the War Zone, which is a really good military news site. Tyler posted tonight and said, at this point, how do you think this all ends? He posted that in response to the Wall Street Journal reporting that, which CBS News is now reporting, that the CIA director went to Moscow on Tuesday to warn them not to attack NATO countries. DJS says Tyler is good for sure. Give me a second. I want to also check a couple things here, then read some more of your comments. Butts FTW says, seems like the CIA could have just sent Russia an email. Tech Jansen says, in quotes, this could have been an email. David Joe Klotz, our viewer, says, Putin will not use nuclear weapons. Cecily Lynn says, I bet the U.S. is intelligence sharing with Russia. Thank you for your donation, says 150,000 soldiers isn't a special operation either. I'd have to check out about I don't even remember the exact number of soldiers that was originally in the invasion. Wikipedia says they massed an estimated 150 to 190,000 troops at the border for the initial invasion. So I'm trying to also, people have sent in a lot of comments, so I'm trying to get to some other comments too that people have sent in. So if you give me a second, I got to check out some of them. PW360, our viewer, says, I still think it would be extremely stupid for Russia to attack any NATO country because clearly there would be a serious response. I understand what PW360 is saying. The thing is, though, I mean, look, think of some limited, not a full-scale invasion, some kind of thing that's bigger than what's been happening so far, but not full-scale invasion. Some kind of limited attack of some, I don't know what it is. Cyber attack, land incursion, I don't know what it is. Who knows? Some kind of weird Russia thing they might do. If that happened, if then NATO countries, in a NATO country, NATO countries would have to consider, what is our response going to be? Because then one thing the NATO countries would think is like, well, we could launch some big military response against Russia, but then there's the risk that Russia's going to escalate further. So, Putin might think that they would be scared of escalating too much for the fear of what Russia will do. But it's not just a simple choice to say, okay, let's just have a strong attack against Russia now as NATO. That'd be a very big choice, which could possibly lead to further very significant escalation. Hang on a moment again. Thanks to Michelle Lauzone for writing in. Who says, you will now submit to Canada? Canada's a whole different story. Maybe we'll talk about that in a different stream. Let's see here. I did want to give you a quick update here. I don't want to really get into this because we did a whole stream on it now, but I just saw something a viewer sent me, and I just wanted to double check here. Oh. Hang on. Trying to find. I saw some reports of new figures of the number of missing from the Nepal and Tibet flooding, but I was just trying to find the sourcing for that and give you an update. I mean, when we were on the air, it was over 400 missing on the Nepal side and over 250 missing on the China side. And I know I'm looking at BBC about a half an hour ago. They said at least 403 are thought to be missing on the Nepal side. I'll have to just, I don't want to get all into that now. We did a whole stream on that. That was terrible. If you want, you can watch our stream we did earlier on the Nepal flooding, Nepal/Tibet flooding, which I've posted some stuff about this on my X account. We talked about this a bit in the earlier stream, but the New York Times reported it wasn't even raining there, which really, and that caused authorities to be caught off guard by the flooding. And the New York Times talked to expert scientists who say they believe that a chunk of ice from a glacier snapped off the glacier, and the chunk of ice was around 2,000 feet wide. I'm not making this up. And it fell about 4,000 feet. And then when it fell and it hit the ground, the ice, the scientists they talked to said the ice gets pulverized into water. And then all that water needs to go somewhere. So there's multiple scientists who talked to the New York Times about this. But that's what they told the New York Times, is that there was a giant piece of glacier that broke off and fell thousands of feet, and just that caused this sudden influx of water and debris. So, which sounds crazy, I know. I posted about it on my X account. But again, they say authorities were not expecting flooding because it was not raining. Yes, and as one of our viewers just said, who said it here? Let's see, hold on. David G mentioned that over 150 are dead right now, and hundreds, over 400 are missing, including at least 47 Americans. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to show you this right now. I know it's not the topic, but I have it right here. Let me just show you this real quick. Glacier collapse may have triggered deadly Nepal flash flood, experts say. A deadly flash flood, this is from Reuters, a deadly flash flood near Nepal's border with Tibet may have been triggered when the lower part of a glacier broke off and crashed onto the valley floor hundreds of meters below, experts said, citing satellite imagery. It was not clear what caused the glacier to collapse, but Nepali officials have pointed to an earthquake in the region minutes earlier as a possibility. Before and after satellite imagery of the region showed lush green mountainside now buried under brown debris and sediment. And Vikram Gupta from India's Sikkim University said it's confirmed that a substantial portion of the glacier snout collapsed to initiate the event, probably including or entraining a fair amount of rock and sediment. Earth scientist Dan Shugar from the University of Calgary said the imagery seemed to show a large amount of snow had melted in the 24 hours prior to the disaster. Some of the glaciers in the valley were covered in snow yesterday, and today they were mostly bare ice. So in other words, he said it was probably warm. Reuters says Nepal's snow-capped mountains have lost close to 1/3 of their ice in just over 30 years due to global warming, the UN said in 2023. The agency added that glaciers in Nepal, wedged between two major carbon emitters, India and China, melted 65% faster in the last decade than in the previous one. The scientist Dan Shugar from the University of Calgary said, what I can see in this morning satellite imagery is that the lower part of a glacier broke off at about 5,200 meters and crashed onto the valley floor about 1,200 meters below, roughly 4,000 feet below. Crazy. He said construction could be a factor too, and whether climate change played a role is something we will no doubt be looking into the near future. So that's a little summary of some thinking on what caused this. A giant glacier, part of a glacier breaking off and falling thousands of feet. About what? Maybe about 3/4 of a mile down and crashing onto the valley floor. Crazy. So I wanted to give you an update on that, even though it was not the topic. But again, you can watch our stream on that from earlier today, and who knows, we might cover that again. I'll have to just see how things play out. Our viewer, I am a good boy, who's our member, thanks for being a member, says something is going on. It's suspicious. I think talking about the whole Russia situation. Thank you for your donation. Who says Russia exposed the supply chain, Iran weakened the supply, art of war. Thank you, Liami1296 for being a member. Thank you, Don. For your support. Don Y9L5W, who said that the U.S. had to give Russia bags of cash during the visit. Thanks, 1ACD, who says Iran is smaller and U.S. would need a minimum of 5,000 So 1ACD is still arguing that it was not a full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. Thank you, Fiona Diamond. Thank you, 1ACD. Thank you, Fiona Diamond, who's our member. Thanks, Xylee42 for being a member. Thanks, Data Relay, who says Russia is the second most powerful military in Ukraine. Thank you. Thanks a lot for being a member. Also, Kendra Fox for your support on Twitch. All right, I think... Let me just do a check and see if I have any updates here. This is a story we very well might be, depending on how things develop, we could end up covering this a lot more. Oh, I do want to mention something. The War Zone has a new article. It's a very good site, twz.com. Their article is called Claims Swirl Around CIA Director's Reason for Secret Moscow Visit. Nearly all of them are terrifying. Let me just show you. I'm going to post a link to this article, and I just want to show you a bit of this article from the War Zone. I posted a link in the chat. It's twz.com. So you can read the whole article, but let me just show you a little of what they're saying over there at the War Zone. About this. Tyler Rogaway and Howard Altman wrote this article. So, and again, I just posted the link in the chat, so you can go there and read the whole. Let me just do it this way. You can go there and read the whole article. But really quick, let me just show you a little bit about what they're saying here in this article. Hang on, I'm putting it on the screen for you right now. See this right there? They say troubling new reports are emerging about the CIA Director Ratcliffe's surprise visit to Moscow Tuesday. All of the reports point to delivering a warning to Putin's regime, while exactly the nature of the warning differ. Now, this is some background here from the War Zone. They say there have been growing concerns in Europe over expanding Russian aggression, and specifically the possibility that Russia could attack a NATO country to test the alliance's resolve. There are also reports that Putin will drastically increase offensive operations in Ukraine due to the massive damage his country is now taking from long-range drone and cruise missile strikes, as well as failed peace talks. I told you that Bloomberg report today that that Putin is planning on escalating in Ukraine. Reports even state, and I told you that Bloomberg reported this, reports even state that Putin is mulling the use of a tactical nuclear weapon in order to stop these attacks and change the tide of the conflict. Okay. And they point out that the Wall Street Journal reported tonight, which I've told you, that Ratcliffe, Wall Street Journal and CBS News have both reported tonight that the CIA director went to Moscow on Tuesday to warn Moscow not to attack NATO countries. The War Zone says, we have been reporting on major concerns for weeks now that Putin could try to test the resolve of NATO with a limited assault of some sort on a NATO country. And also, let me just see here. Oh, they also point out the Wall Street, the War Zone, that today, on Wednesday, ABC News said that an explosive drone that was found near a Ukrainian plane at Leipzig airport recently in Germany bore the hallmarks of devices typically employed by Russia's military intelligence directorate. Okay, and also the War Zone also says in their story today that just came out, I believe, that numerous Russian drone incursions and other Russian actions have some European officials convinced that Putin is already waging a so-called hybrid war against NATO, and he's been doing so for some time. And the War Zone mentions, we talked about this earlier, that President Trump downplayed the Ratcliffe trip today, calling it semi-routine. But the War Zone says that statement from Trump that the trip was semi-routine is hard to square, considering how rare it is to have a CIA director rush to Moscow. And as we told you, as the Washington Post said, the last time a CIA director went to Moscow was in 2021, and that was shortly before the war in Ukraine. And that trip was, you can see here from the Washington Post, right here, they say it right here. The last known visit by a CIA director to Moscow was November 2021, when William J. Burns, who led the CIA under President Biden, warned Putin and his top aides to not attack Ukraine and spelled out what the consequences would be. Moscow launched its full-scale invasion within weeks. Okay, and okay, so the War Zone points that out. Let's see here. So, and at the end of this the article from the War Zone, which I'll post a link to this article from the War Zone so you can read it, the whole thing. I'm posting it right now in the chat, twz.com. The War Zone says, whether Putin actually does escalate attacks remains to be seen. With increased production of ballistic missiles and new ones from North Korea, Putin may have new means of sustaining conventional attacks. Remember, multiple reports have said that Ukraine has very little capacity now to shoot down Russian ballistic missiles because they don't have their interceptors to do it anymore, or they have very few interceptors. As for a nuclear attack, Putin has constantly rattled that saber for years, says the War Zone. There have been reports in the past that China and India have frequently urged him to refrain from that steep climb up the escalation ladder. The War Zone says, we raised the question of Putin using tactical nuclear weapons on Ukraine several months after he launched his full-on invasion, asking the world's top nuclear proliferation experts of the likelihood it would happen. You can read that feature here. If you go to this article, you can click on that link and read that. But our experts' sentiments were made long before Ukraine was picking apart Russian infrastructure on a daily basis. Right, with the standoff weapons armada growing by the day. This is just what I was talking about. In recent months, Ukraine has launched more strikes farther inside Russia, doing more damage than they have been during the war, right? They've been hitting Russian oil refineries. They've been hitting facilities for Russia's version of Amazon wild berries. They're creating themselves longer range drones. They're developing their missile technology using a new Flamingo missiles. So there is this trajectory recently where Ukraine is carrying out more and more attacks on Russia, deeper inside Russia. The War Zone says, so while it isn't exactly clear what was discussed in this meeting or its primary objective, none of the reported reasons for the meeting are encouraging. Quite the opposite, says the War Zone. They point to the possibility of a darker new phase in the Russian-NATO standoff. There's a lot more in this article you can read. Again, I will post a link again to this article. It is called Out Tonight, just came out tonight, about 15 minutes ago in the War Zone. Claims swirl around CIA director's reason for a secret Moscow visit. Nearly all of them are terrifying. You can find that at the War Zone. I am posting the link again. I appreciate them letting me show you some of their article. It's a really good military news site. And again, you can go to the article right now and read the whole thing. I just posted the link, twz.com. And they are not prone to hyperbole. They are not a site that constantly says, oh, this huge military escalation is going to happen. They're normally very level-headed about things. So I wanted to mention that. Kate Bremer says people underestimate how much of a problem Ukraine really is. Pumbaa says, tough for Putin. Maybe he shouldn't have invaded if he didn't want to get hit back. Slippy thinks Finnish troops would be in St. Petersburg within 24 hours? Russia doesn't want that smoke with NATO? Mikey says NATO recently held an air exercise next to Kaliningrad. Yeah, we talked about that a little earlier on the stream. I don't want to get all into it now. It's not clear to me that that was in response to recent developments, but I don't know. Hank says Russia is running out of gas. Good luck with starting new wars. Thanks, most trustworthy Machiavelli, who says, how secretive can the CIA director's visit to Moscow be if it's plastered all over mainstream media? Thank you, Steve. Let me just address this point again, which I've addressed earlier. There's different ways something can be secretive. The meeting was not announced in advance. It was not announced. When it was happening, when it was going on, there were no announcements about it. When it happened. Since it happened, there's been no announcement from the U.S. government on why it happened. All of those are secretive aspects. Just because it is not completely secret does not mean it can't be secretive. That is my response to that comment, which we have gotten several times. So I really appreciated most trustworthy Machiavelli, but I think some people are getting hung up on the word secretive. But remember, things can be secretive in different ways. Thank you so much, though, for your support, most trustworthy Machiavelli. When the headlines say secretive, they don't mean a complete and total secret that nobody knows about. they mean it has secretive aspects. That's what the headlines are saying. Thank you to, let's see here. Hold on a second. Let me just make sure, and make sure we don't have any more reporting coming out about this. Let's see here. Hang on a moment. We very well could be back on the air covering this story as it develops. And I do wonder what other outlets are going to report. Maybe we'll get a Truth Social post from President Trump denying these stories and calling them fake news. I mean, sometimes he does that. So we'll have to see. Check his Truth Social. I don't see anything recently about it. Give me 1 second here. Oh, there's something else I wanted to check. Sorry. Tree Lobster says the word being used is secretive, not secret. Update! Politico is reporting this now. Politico. CIA Director Ratcliffe warned Russian officials in Moscow not to escalate the conflict with America's NATO allies, in particular Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, in response to the stalemated invasion of Ukraine. They say he also used the trip to press Russia to reduce support for Iran. Okay, so that's what Politico is reporting. And one of the sources told Politico that the meeting was primarily to warn Russia against any escalatory action against the Baltic states. So Politico is also reporting this. I got to post that too. Hang on a moment here. Give me a moment. So Politico is saying that's a third outlet saying with a report that a source told them that the primary reason for the trip was to warn Russia to not attack NATO's allies, not escalate against NATO's allies, in particular Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Hang on, I'm just getting this posted. I'll post a link to the Politico article on my X account. It's interesting that the The Wall Street Journal specifically mentioned the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and so did the Politico story. Now, maybe they're talking to some of the same officials, but they're not. I mean, they're each independently reporting on this. All right, let me just get this posted. Then I'll take a few more comments. So multiple outlets, 3 different outlets reporting this. I mean, strictly speaking, Politicos has one of their sources saying this. But basically, 3 different outlets reporting that the primary purpose of the CIA director flying unannounced to Moscow was to warn them to not attack NATO states. CGS lady says, what is Russia doing? They better knock it off. Voidnull, he was in Riga. He flew to apparently he flew, well, I think he flew from the big transport plane flew from Riga, Latvia to Moscow. Void Null says he was in Lithuania for a day or two before going to Moscow. Is that true? I don't know if he was. I don't know if I want to bother looking that up now, but I don't know if he met with people in any of those countries in the Baltics before or after. But the plane went from Latvia. Let's see here. Toy Roy thinks all Putin can do is make idle threats. Hey, thanks to Syntact YX, who says the core issue is this: Russia can use the threat of nuclear escalation to shield them from any conventional military response by NATO on Russian soil. That's what Synactics thinks. Thank you, Synactics. Also, 1xCD, who says find out their sources. It's all the same. 1xCD thinks that the different publications are talking to the same people. It's possible, but it's also possible. I mean, they all clearly think the people they're talking to are in a place to know and trust them, whoever they are. All right, I think we're getting close to that time. This is really an interesting story, and who knows where this is all going to go. But we have talked tonight. If you missed it, we have talked all about we've been talking all about this visit to Moscow on Tuesday by the CIA director. And now the multiple U.S. media reports that the chief reason he went was to warn them against attacking a NATO country. So we'll have to see what happens. By the way, Kendall John was watching from Trinidad and Tobago. That's neat. So I will certainly be keeping an eye on this. If there are significant developments involving the U.S., NATO, Russia, and Ukraine, certainly we can do more coverage of it. So I really appreciate people tuning into our coverage tonight. And man, it is late. It's 4:30 a.m. here. Yeah, while I'm in Spain, I just have to deal with the hours. It's just it's a 6-hour difference, believe it or not. So it is now 4:31 a.m. here. But anyways, while I'm here, I am committed to bringing you the news. So But it's 10:31 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So I really appreciate it. If you want, you can subscribe, follow the channel, Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live news, live breaking news without an agenda. And also, I would suggest that you turn the notifications on for the channel. I never know when there's going to be some big news and I'm going to rush on the air. But if you want to get sent a notification every time before we go live for free, sign up for our free notifications. The mod will post the sign up link in the chat. You can also find the sign up link in the YouTube and Facebook description of this video. So sign up for the notifications. I really do appreciate everybody for tuning in. And also, it was really cool. We got to read a bunch of comments tonight. A lot of people writing in, sharing their views, telling me updates, sending me links, asking questions. So I'm glad we got to take a bunch of your comments on this. And we'll keep you posted. I hope things don't escalate, but we'll have to see. Let's see. So, I will post updates on my X account. If I'm not on the air and I see some stuff going on, some big news, and it's not something I'm going to stream about, I will post about it on my X account. My X account is @Lookner, @LOOKNER. You can follow me over there for updates. Hey, also shout out to our moderators. Our moderators, we could not have our chat rooms without our moderators here. They are incredible, and they are the ones who allow us to have chats. They keep things under control in the chat room. Thank you so much, Ruth and Deadwing over there on YouTube. Huge thanks. Roberts May Queen, thank you. They are all over there. On all of our other YouTube moderators, thank you so much. Our Twitch moderators, Bastion Girl, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, and our other Twitch moderators, huge thank you. Linda Belklary and Misha moderate for us on X, thanks so much. And also our Facebook moderators like Andrea Holder and Kay Lowry Body and Paul Anderson and Darren Charlo, thank you. Oh, Helen Anderson was watching from Sweden, 4:30 there. Thanks, Helen, for staying up late to watch. So thanks to all of our moderators. Thanks also to everybody who supported the channel. So nice of you guys. I think I almost got everybody. Let me just see if I owe somebody a thank you. Oh, I do. Michael Bailey. Michael Bailey said, you said an escalation could be a cyber attack. Well, I didn't say that. Some of the reports have said that. But haven't we caught Russia already doing cyber attacks on NATO countries and done nothing? The pipeline that got blown up too. You mean the Nord Stream pipeline? I mean, without getting all into that, there's different claims about who blew that up. But that was, some people claim that was a Ukrainian action. I don't want to get into all that now. Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. You can read about that on Wikipedia, Nord Stream pipeline sabotage. Anyways, but addressing, not getting onto all of that now, but just addressing the general question you're saying is, regardless of the specifics of that, the general point that Michael was saying was, seems like it would have to be a more serious threat for this response. Right, so look, Russia has certainly appeared to be carrying out some kind of hybrid attacks in recent months and recent years. For example, it certainly looks like Russia is responsible for putting an explosive drone or drones at an airport in Germany near a Ukrainian plane in recent weeks. And I don't know if it was intended to blow up or not. And there was, I believe we covered a Russian drone hitting a building in Romania. But the point is, so yes, those things have happened. But to clarify, I believe the concern of the US and other NATO countries would be that they do something that's more escalated than this. It's not talking about doing something at this level. It's talking about doing something on a more escalated level, whatever that might be. So I understand the questions, and it's a reasonable question, but it's the concern is about something more escalated. Thank you to Michael Bailey. And let's see here. Also, I do owe a thank you to. Thank you to Kendra Fox for all your support. Really appreciate it. And everybody else who supported over there on Twitch. I think I thanked everybody. Snapfish, thank you. Let's see here. Oh, I do want to mention also that another good way to find out when we're going live, if you are on X, follow us on X. No, that's me. Follow us on X, at Agenda Free TV. I always post there before we go live. I post updates about the channel over there, at Agenda Free TV. Also, we do have a chat where you can chat with other viewers. We have a Discord chat. It's free. You can chat with other viewers there. A number of our viewers like doing that. Check it out. It's the same link as the free notifications link to check out the chat. Thanks so much to our Discord moderators who moderate our Discord chat. Thank you, Discord moderators. And also, for those who watch on YouTube, I would suggest turning on the YouTube notifications. Another way to find out when we're live. To turn on the new YouTube notifications, what you need to do is you need to subscribe to the channel, and then you have to click here. There's the channel. You got to subscribe to the channel, then click the bell and choose all notifications. Subscribe, click the bell, and choose all notifications. If you're already subscribed, click the bell. Make sure you have the bell clicked and you've bell checked and you've chosen all notifications. Hey, also huge thanks to our Facebook subscribers who support the channel over there, like Dolly Clark and Kristen McConnell Gates and Kay Lowry Body and all of our other Facebook subscribers. Huge thank you for supporting the channel. Also our Twitch subscribers. Thank you, Twitch subscribers. People like, sorry I didn't thank you earlier. My bad, and the members. Usually I get to you guys before, but I didn't tonight. Sorry. Jax Haku, Bastion Girl, Seed Music, Justin D. Winters, and Timbit Power, Rancor. Thanks also for watching Rays from Germany. Sandy Doggo, thanks for subscribing. Dave the Slave, Boba J. Fett. Crankin, thanks for subscribing on Twitch. Holistic. Blue Lotus, Wall Street Shaggy, and our other subscribers. Kendra Fox, thank you. Jax Haku. And all of our YouTube members. Hey, thanks, YouTube members. Really appreciate your support for the channel. People like Crypto King and Steel Booking and Patricia Grace. Don Video Guy. Oh, thanks, GVI161 from the UK for all your support. GVI, thank you. Really appreciate it. Tarot223, thanks for your support. Tarot223, and thanks for being a member. Crypto King, William Cromer, Silent Hero, Evelyn and Maine, thanks for being members. Sean C., Ken Lance, David Joe Klotz, Roy 1822, CAC 813, who else? Stacy TW, and all of our other members, Danielle Klingenberg, and all of our other members, thank you. Thanks for watching. Luke Loki, Kim from Rochester, thank you, Kim, for being a member. Sambino says, tired of war. And thanks to also a few more people. Johnny Be Good, Svisky, thanks for watching. Simp Nasty, thanks for watching. Stream the Memes, thanks for watching. What Up Doe, thank you for watching. And a couple more while I have a second. Couple last thank yous here for watching. John Simonetta, Helen Anderson, Dolly Clark, and thanks everybody else for watching too. All right, so I am wrapping up this stream right now. I will certainly be keeping an eye out for new updates. Oh, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I have one update about Nepal. AFP says Chinese authorities now say over 550 missing in Tibet mudslide. 558 missing in Tibet mudslide. And Nepal says 468 tourists are missing. That's according to AFP. So that would be 1,000 people combined. Over 1,000. Let me just mention that again. I just wanted to mention that about Nepal. So AFP says Chinese authorities say, they said 3 dead earlier. They're still saying 3 dead, but Chinese authorities are saying 558 missing on their side of the border, whereas Nepal is saying 468 missing. Mostly, they say 468 tourists, mostly foreigners, out of contact. So that would be over 1,000 people combined. Unbelievable. I just wanted to mention that to you. I just saw it right now. Yes, I'm seeing that right now. Xinhua News, China says 3 dead, 558 missing after the mudslide hit a border port in China, Tibet. Wow, that just came out. Terrible. Okay, so we might do more coverage of that later. We did a whole stream on that earlier today. Just awful. If you want, you can go watch the stream we did on that, but just awful and terrible. But I'm not surprised. The numbers could be higher too. I'm not surprised. By the way, I forgot to mention about that. One thing I did see, the New York Times said that a statement from Nepal's prime minister said that there were at least 19 vehicle bridges and 40 kilometers of roads swept away by the flash flooding. Okay. Terrible. So again, we may do more coverage of that later. Danielle thinks it will rise. All right. So I just saw that come out right now. I did want to update you on that. Sad news before we got off the air. So that is it right now. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.